Hey, what up, guys? Artie back for another review, and like I said, I would review Zodiac. Bought this film at Book Off for not that expensive, but I got Steelbook. I don't know if you saw my last video, but I'm gonna review Zodiac. So Zodiac is directed by. Well, first of all, if you've never heard of the Zodiac case, it was in the early 1960s. This murder took place over 20 years. He was dropping hints, dropping encrypted messages for people to break and trying to figure out who the psycho was. And we journey through this story with Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, and Jake Gyllenhaal, and we follow these characters get involved and sucked into this case over the years, and how it demolished their relationships with their family, and how this job can really eat you alive, and how disgusting this person could be, and how he's taunting the police. And you go through this journey, and you just kind of like, you get invested also. Like, when this movie was over, I investigated a little bit. I got deep, and that's why I didn't upload the video so quick, because I was on YouTube going pretty deep on who is this killer, and has there any new evidence come out, and how they think it's this one guy, but they can't really prove it's this guy. I don't know. It's a really crazy story. The movie is made by Fincher. This movie, and nobody talks about it, because when I saw this movie at Book Off to purchase, I didn't even know this was made by Fincher. But when I popped it in and watched it in my room, I could tell. I had to Google it because I was like, oh my god, this looks like Social Network style. Like, the way it's shot and framed, perfect. This movie is so good that it's gonna make you go insane, because you want to figure out, you want to follow the step by steps of how these people come about, and how they crack the code, and Boy Scouts can crack this code, and just how it really shows you that this could only happen in that time of when it happened. Because if the technology we have today, we could have caught this guy probably less than 4 years, or maybe even sooner, because he sent mail and to newspapers, and they had to print it. It was this movie's like a fucking roller coaster of like, it's like a relationship. Like, the case is the relationship, and you love the case, but the case don't love you back. And you're just trying to prove to it, like, hey, I figured you out. I love you. And the case is like, nah, you didn't crack the code yet. And I just want to talk about the performances of this movie. The Jake Gyllenhaal. Dude, this is pre-Nightcrawler losing his mind kind of shit. Because Nightcrawler, he's blinking really fast, and he's going kind of like insane because he wants to be the guy that's like TMZ. This one, he gets sucked in. He works in the newspaper, and he's a cartoonist, but he gets so like captivated by these killings, because he also has a kid, and he threatened to kill kids at one point. So he gets more invested than just being a cartoonist. He gets so invested that he stops being a cartoonist, and he gets balls deep and writing a book, and he's trying to solve the case for himself. And Mark Ruffalo character is an inspector, a detective that has a partner that they detect this. They try to investigate this story for like 20 years. Since he was a detective, he was investigating pretty much, and it took away from his family, and his partner didn't want to get sucked into it anymore, and it ate him alive. Robert Downey Jr. was playing Paul Avery, and he's working for the newspaper, and he writes columns about what's going on. And the Zodiac killer sent him a letter personally in the movie, and he got so freaked out that he drank himself and smoked himself to death, pretty much, because it haunted him, because he was trying to crack the case also. So Jake Gyllenhaal puts it on his shoulders to solve the whole case, and there's suspects along the way who you think they are and who they're not, and it's crazy, because you watch one of the scenes with who they're investigating, who they think it is, and you're like, this guy, he falls in the MO. He has the same size, he has the gloves, he has guns, he has knives, and then the writing samples don't match. So they throw him out, and they're like, no, it's not him. But it turns out it most likely was him, but they can't prove it because of whatever the facts are in their case, that their handwriting doesn't match. But dude, from start to finish, this movie's 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it fucking flew by. I would recommend buying this movie. You can get, not the Steelbook, I think the regular edition, just for like $7. Or you could probably rent it on Amazon, whatever. I would highly recommend checking this movie out. The Zodiac Killer, the Zodiac Director's Cut. It's one of his greatest movies ever made. I'm so glad I purchased this movie and not knowing what it was, but when I put it on, I could tell like almost instantly the stylistic and the way it's framed, the way it's shot. It's totally Fincher. It reminded me of Gone Girl. It reminded me of Social Network. Just the way it was, the color tones and the way it was shot. Man, let's talk about how he set up the setting of this movie. The setting is the 1960s all the way up to the 1990s, and you travel through like parts of time of this movie, and you feel the time. You felt like you went through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, then the early 90s, and you feel like that they took the time, and you don't feel like there was ever a slow moment, and nor did you feel like any scene took you out of the movie. If anything, there's a scene where Jake Gyllenhaal investigates one of the guys he really thinks it is, and he goes to investigate him, and he talks to his coworker, and he's all like, investigate him at his house, and you get this eerie vibe, the darkness that like eats their room. He's like, let's come downstairs. I have it down here in a basement. And he goes, well, in California, a lot of people don't have basements. He's like, well, I do. And he goes downstairs and follows him. And then when he inspects, he tells the guy the story. And he's all like, yeah, I think the murderer drew these and wrote this because he has the same handwriting. And he goes, well, he couldn't have because I drew those and I wrote those. And then Jake Gyllenhaal has just like an epiphany. He's all like, what the fuck, is this the murder? And I'm in his house talking to him, and you like kind of lose your breath. You're like, oh my god, is this him? Like, are we looking at the Zodiac? And you're just kind of like going through the motions, and I don't think it is, but you get that creepy feeling because they tell you the killer, they at the end of the movie, because there's no resolution really. They just kind of tell you like, okay, this is what happened towards the end of their lives, the people that were affected in this, and then the case is still kind of open, but it's not shut because the person they thought it was Anthony Lee Allen, and he's the prime suspect, but he's not the case closed shut because he had a heart attack prior to being interviewed. So the case is closed, but ever since he died, there's been no more Zodiac letters or threats or murders or stuff like that. So I would definitely go buy this movie. I would go check it out. I would rent it. I would Zodiac. Watch this film.